What's up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are back in my home garage to get some work done on the yellow Z. Drop a comment down below if you missed this thing, because I know I have. And while we still have a lot of work to do on Josh's Z, I also have some work to do on my own car. If you had watched the last video at the very end, you'll know exactly why, and that's because I am taking this thing to its first ever competition. Also my first ever competition. And while it is going to be a pretty chill, grassroots, fun competition, there are real prizes and there are some real good drivers showing up, and I am really excited for that. For more info on the event, check out Pacific Drift Team on Instagram. They're the ones hosting the event. It's out in Apple Valley on April 29th, which is only about a week away. That's kind of scary now that I think about it, because we still have a lot of work to do on Josh's car. But nonetheless, we got to get some work done. Thankfully, my car doesn't need a whole lot. But as I'm sure you guys know, every event does have its own prep, and there's a little more to do than usual just because this thing has been through the ringer between Drift Week and that other event at Horse Thief Mile, all without a break in between. So this has been the break, and I've got some work to do. So enough talking, let's get to work. Okay, so first thing on the list is actually something not important. I don't need to do it at all, but I really want to do it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you remember in the top 5 mods I said to do to your car, I was talking about bucket seats, and I had mentioned one that I got for the Z. That's this one. Just a no-name, pretty clean fiberglass bucket seat. It's also quite wide, which is good for passengers, ride-alongs. Everybody should be welcome to and should fit in that, hopefully. If you watched that video where I talked about getting a bucket seat, you'll know that I found this thing on Facebook Marketplace for only 150 bucks. And while it was listed as used, it actually is brand new. It still has plastic on the back of it. I don't think it's ever been used. According to the guy I bought it from, he said he bought it, sat it in his car, and didn't like the way it fit in the car, or didn't like the way it fit him, something along those lines. Either way, it was a great deal for me. As you can see, this thing still has the plastic on the back. As far as seat brackets go, I went with the same Bell Raceworks that I have in the driver's seat. These are also the same ones that I had Josh pick up for his car. I'm just a real fan of the way they work. There's nothing to them at all. There's no moving parts, there's no extra stuff, and there's no extra weight. And while we're on the topic of weight, I'm gonna pull the stock seat out and weigh it in comparison to this bucket seat with the brackets and see how much weight we're gonna save doing this swap. Now, if you're not aware of what's in my car, it is a power leather heated seat, the heaviest option that these Z's came with. So that's why I'm interested to see the weight difference, because I think it will be pretty substantial. So let's get this factory seat out, see what it weighs. Oh, goodness. Well, that says it all, doesn't it? We can ignore the trash there. We'll get back. Is that Pikachu? I wondered where he went. All right, let's compare these two seats. First, a little side-by-side comparison. Already removed the seat belt, so that will not be taken into account because we will be reusing this. So let's put these things on the scale. All right, I have the seat balancing here. As you can see, it is 41.9 pounds. Now, I did have it kind of balancing precariously on the scale there, but I checked it 3 different times and got the same weight each time. So I'm confident that that's accurate. Almost 42 pounds for a stock seat. That is crazy. Again, this is the heaviest option you can get in a Z, being leather, power, and heated. So I think it's going to make a big difference to have this aftermarket seat and the super lightweight rails in. Let's see how much of a difference. And 20.4 for this seat right here. Now, same thing, I kind of had it balanced on there, but checked it 3 times and it was the same weight. 20.4 versus almost 42. So we saved over 20 pounds just by switching seats. Am I gonna feel that difference driving? Probably not, but I like knowing I saved some weight where I could. Plus, the seat's gonna be a whole lot better. I think the passengers are gonna enjoy it a lot more because they're not gonna be flying around. Besides, there's nothing to hold on to in the passenger seat of this car. The one little handle that was normally on the passenger door got ripped out a long time ago and I never fixed it. So anytime a passenger gets in, they're always like, oh, what do I hold on to? Now at least they'll be in a seat that holds them in a bit better. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the right hardware to bolt this seat to the brackets. The bolts it came with are kind of trash, and while I use them to get the weight here, and I'm gonna use them to test fit it in the car, they're not something I wanna keep long term. They're just really cheap material. I can already feel the threads are starting to strip out, and they're like by hand. And they're a little too small. Plus, I wanna trim these brackets down If you really paid attention in a video a long time ago, I actually cut the top slot off these brackets. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so looking at these Bell Raceworks brackets, you see that there are 4 different levels you can have the height at. And because I'm a tall person, I put them either as low as they can go or 1 notch above that. I'm never gonna use that tall one. So on the driver's side, I actually cut that top row off entirely. Again, just to save a bit of weight, plus I think it looks kind of goofy having the rail so far up the seat. And up in the front, it actually runs into the cushion, especially if I put it on the lowest setting. So I'm gonna cut that off and get some better hardware maybe tomorrow or the next day, because well, everything's closed now. But at least we can test fit it in the car. Got lucky and found some fresh gold zinc hardware in my bucket of bolts. If you guys don't have a bucket of bolts, you definitely need to get one. There's my little tip for you in this video. Whatever you're working on, in my case, a Nissan Z, those are just a bunch of bolts from random Nissans and Zs and things along those lines. It's so helpful to have a bunch of metric hardware, all kinds of shapes and sizes that you know will work on your car. I used to have a way bigger one when I owned a few 240s and other cars, but at the end of the day, they're all pretty similar as long as you have hardware from some Japanese oldish car. I guarantee you it's gonna come in handy. So the next time you're at the junkyard digging for parts, toss a few bolts in your bag. I've never been charged for hardware. Even if I do show them like, hey, I'm bringing home 10 extra bolts, they're like, we don't care about that. Worst case, they may charge you $1 or $2, but I'm telling you, it is so handy to have a bunch of extra stuff on hand. Anyways, enough about bolts. I'm gonna test fit this seat in. Tomorrow I'll end up chopping the bracket down, but it's not gonna make a difference in the way this thing fits, so let's get it thrown in the car. Okay, you guys earned this. Okay, maybe that wasn't as satisfying as I'd hoped for. Enough messing around, let's get this thing in the car. All right, so still some adjustments need to be made, and don't look at that ugly hardware. That's not the fancy zinc stuff, because it didn't work, but ignore that. The seat's in. Like I said, I still got to adjust it a little bit, but I think it looks pretty cool. It's not nearly as cool as that over there, but that also costs 10 times as much, so I'm cool with this. All right, enough about the seat. It's done, it's in, it's good enough. Let's get to some of the real issues. Now, the biggest issue I have to fix is, I don't actually remember if I showed it on camera, but this thing developed a really bad exhaust leak somewhere between Drift Week and the last event I did at Horse Thief Mile. And I don't know if it's just some loose bolts or if I tore the flex pipes in half that are on that Y pipe, because they were a little questionable looking to begin with. But either way, I gotta get this thing jacked up. I've got to get the rear wheels off because we have to get some fresh tires on this thing. And as always, I've got to do a bolt check. You guys know I preach that in almost every video. Always bolt check your cars before events, because it's better to be safe than sorry. So let's get this thing up in the air and take a look. I just want to take a minute here to highlight the importance of a good alignment. So this is a pretty nice tire. This is one of the Valino 80Cs. And you can see because of my alignment, the wear is not even. So the inside, especially like right here, you can see is, the tread's just about gone, right? It's down past the wear bar, but over here there's still quite a bit of tread left. Now, it kind of breaks my heart to say this tire's done, because it's not. I could get it flipped, and I'm sure I could get a handful more laps out of it, and I may end up doing that, but like I said, this really shows the importance of alignment here. Obviously that's a flat spot from like a long e-brake drag, but still. This tread out here is untouched. Look how much depth there is there, and that's gone, right? Now, the reason for that is just because I don't have camber arms on this car, and the reason I don't have camber arms is because I don't have true coilovers. If you know anything about 350Zs, they have a divorced coilover setup from the factory, meaning it's actually not a coilover, it's a shock and a spring, and the spring sits in the arm that would normally be the camber arm, and I'm rambling on. I actually have camber arms just sitting around, but I haven't been willing to spend the money on good coilovers yet, because it's gonna be like $1,200 or $1,500 for the set of coilovers I want. And while it would be worth it, it's just not in the budget right now. So sometime soon, it's definitely coming, because as you can see, it's literally costing me money by not getting my full use out of tires. That's kind of an extreme example. I've definitely got more life out of tires, but Horse Thief Mile wears through tires kind of weird just because it's such a long downhill. You do have to drag the e-brake just a little bit. Anyways, I'm rambling on. Like I said, I really just wanted to highlight the importance of a good alignment because it will make the difference of your tires lasting 8 to 10 laps versus 15, 20, 30, 40. Now, camber will definitely kill tires, but toe will also really kill tires. So while my camber's not perfect, I do my best to make sure the toe on this car is exactly where it needs to be so I can get the most life out of my tires. Which is why, again, I preach bolt checks and alignment checks before every event. Because your alignment could loosen up at your last event and you don't check it for the next one, and then it's a little bit off, and I'm telling you, it's the difference between changing tires super often and not that often. So if you haven't done it in a while, check your alignment.
So we're under the side of the car here, and I'm looking at the Y pipe. And this is where I thought the exhaust leak would be from, is these flex pipes that are pretty torn up, but really it just looks like it's this mesh like covering that's torn up. Because actually on the inside, like the baffles themselves for the flex isn't really torn up, and the bolts are all tight there. Also, this is a new Y pipe. This is what Drift Week and drifting in the snow in Utah did. So I still have to get under here and like pressure wash the underside of the car, but I don't know that that's our exhaust leak. There's no black like soot around it. So I'm gonna pop the hood and see if maybe like an exhaust manifold bolt came loose, or maybe if one of the bolts on the test pipes came loose. It's hard to tell. I have found the problem. The camera doesn't really want to focus, but that is just a bolt with no nut on the back. And the other one's a stud, so that one's good, but there's another bolt on the back, or rather on the other half of that is also missing a nut. So only one of the 3 nuts and bolts are still on that test pipe. That's on the driver's side, which explains why it was so loud from the driver's seat. The passenger side seems fine.
Another great example of why you should bolt check your cars. Now, obviously this is an exhaust leak and I can hear that something was wrong, but 2 of the 3 bolts that hold that test pipe on are not even connected to anything. That's crazy. But at least the problem is identified and it is easily fixable. I was honestly kind of stressed because I was thinking if it was the flex pipes in the middle of that Y, that I was gonna have to cut them out and weld in new pipes, and I really don't have the time for that with this drift event approaching in less than a week now, which is crazy to say because my car's not a super long ways away, but it's definitely got some work that I need to put into it. And Josh's car is, well, it's still a ways away. We're honestly really behind schedule on that. I'm not super stoked on where we're at there. I was really hoping we would have the car like done and already have done some testing on it, so we were going into this event confident, but hey, where's the fun in that, right? Anyways, it's getting pretty late here, so I will catch you guys tomorrow and we will tackle that exhaust leak, get this bolt check knocked out, and I should probably do an oil change too, huh? See you guys tomorrow. All right, after another long day of work, we are back in the garage to actually put in some work on the Z. I never made it over to Josh's to get my other jack stands, so I'm just gonna throw the wheels back on this thing after I do a bolt check on the back half of the car. We'll jack the front up, do a bolt check on the front half, get that exhaust leak figured out, and get the oil changed. Now, I've talked about how to do a bolt check before, but as a quick refresher, I'm just under here with a couple of wrenches checking all the common nuts and bolts that get loose, like the ones that hold your axles together, the eccentric bolts that control your alignments, and anything else within reach that seems important. All right, bolt check on the back half of the car is done. Thankfully, everything looked nice and tight, just the way I left it. Now we're gonna move on to the front. Taking a look at my front tires here, they still have just enough tread, I think, for one last track day on them. I've got the Valino 80Rs up front. These things have done me really well. They saw the second half of Drift Week, all the road miles, and countless track days on Drift Week, and then obviously that one at Horse Thief Mile as well. And like I said, I think they got one last one in them. They're definitely on their last leg, but they've got enough tread, so we'll be good there. I'm gonna do a quick bolt check on the front. Of course, get that exhaust leak fixed and do a quick oil change, and I think we'll be good. I think.
All right, so now that we're under the car, we can get a better idea of what is causing this exhaust leak. And as you can see here, there is nothing holding that in. I mean, like, that shouldn't happen there. So I'm gonna get a nut for this bolt here, and we'll get this guy thrown back in. And it's the same story with the other one. You can't see because it's kind of on the back side of this triangle here, but we'll get that all bolted up and I think we'll be good.
Yeah, that's definitely the problem there.
No exhaust leaks! Bolt check officially done. Exhaust leak officially fixed. Car sounds good. Just got to knock out this oil change. I still have to get hardware to actually like finish mounting the seat, but I can do that off camera. Other than getting some tires mounted, I think this thing's ready. All right, y'all, place your bets. Is this going to be the last event this motor sees? Because that was a lot of copper and shiny material in the oil. Kind of alarming. Now, if you've been with the channel for a long time, you may remember on the very first startup of this thing, or rather the first oil change, that's what it looked like. Now, I believe at some point this thing had a whole bunch of copper gasket maker, that stuff you get in a jar that's supposed to like stop leak junk. But I believe someone put that in this thing at some point because the first oil change had way more copper than that in it. And there was copper in the coolant as well. And it all ended up getting flushed out, and I've had a lot of clean oil changes since then, but it's weird for it to resurface back. So I'm thinking it may not be that old gasket material maker junk. And it could be rod bearings, which is not good. But there's only one way to find out. This thing sounded great when I started it up to test for that exhaust leak. That was right before I drained the oil, so all I can do is put fresh oil in it, go to the track event, and hope for the best. And if it rod knocks, it rod knocks. I won't be mad. This car owes me nothing at this point. But like I said, it's a little concerning. Either way, I figured now's a good time to tell you what I'm even doing. So I've kind of mentioned this in the last video. I will be at Apple Valley Speedway April 29th. That is this Saturday, which is just in a couple days now, for Pacific Drift Team's grassroots style drift competition. It's actually going to be a pretty cool event from what I'm gathering. My first time running with these guys, and it's a competition, albeit a pretty laid back one. And they're doing 3 different things. So they've got a big entry comp, and then they've got your regular tandem comps. One is on the first, I think, 4 turns of Apple Valley Speedway. And then the next one, they're actually running the track backwards and doing it on what would normally be the last couple turns, but they'll be the first because we're doing it backwards. So 3 different comps all in the same day. And they're giving away some really cool prizes too. I believe they're giving away like 6 tires for first place, and I think a set of wheels, and then a couple of steering wheels, and I think even second and third place get some free tires and some other goodies. So a lot of really cool prizes up for grabs. I think the turnout's going to be pretty cool. I'm starting to see more and more pretty good and fairly competitive drivers sign up, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. So I'm hoping I get a chance to battle some really good drivers and hopefully learn a lot. It's going to be a really fun event. It's going to be my first ever competition. Like I said, it's a pretty laid back one, being the whole grassroots vibe and stuff, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be really cool to actually say I was in a real competition with something on the line instead of just bragging rights. Now all I got to do is trust that the old Z will get me through it all. And hey, this thing's done me well this long. I doubt it's going to let me down now. I mean, maybe we all saw the oil, but hey, all we can do is cross our fingers and hope for the best.
All right, place a comment down below. Is that bearing material? Is this thing going to blow up? I kind of think so, to be honest with you. Well, that big chunk actually is really weird looking. But all of that,
Really though, what do you guys think? I'm curious. So put a comment down below. Place your bets now. If it is worst case scenario that is bearing material and the motor is going to be toast, I really hope I can have some fun this weekend before it lets go. But like I said, at the end of the day, this thing owes me nothing. So we're just gonna have to take whatever it throws at us and roll with it. Anyways, guys, this was not the prep for competition that I was aiming for. I was really hoping I was gonna have a bit more time to try to actually do a few little mods to make this thing just a little bit more competitive, but that didn't work out. My actual day job got in the way. I ended up working way more than I thought I was going to, and Josh's car has taken a lot more free time than I thought it would, so I actually still need to get over there and work on that thing. We're really cutting it close now. Either way though, I went through the Z. This thing is ready to go. All we can do is cross our fingers that that motor's gonna hold out. I really hope it does, just because I'm really looking forward to this comp. I really think I can learn a lot, even if it's just kind of a grassroots fun competition. Just that word competition being in there, I think is gonna change my mindset, and hopefully for the better, and not psych me out and make me a way worse driver. So get excited for the next video, because it's gonna be an absolute banger. Not only is it my first ever comp, it's gonna be Josh's first ever drift day. That's assuming that we get his car together. So a lot to come in the next video. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this one. And as always, I will catch you in the next one.